What's going on, everyone? So this is a big game for the San Antonio Spurs. The San Antonio Spurs take on the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers have been hot. Lakers have been beating teams without their best players. They haven't had LeBron all season. Luka Doncic has been in and out of the lineup. And they just beat the Portland Trail Blazers, who actually were looking pretty good to start the season. Beat them without Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves, right? And did it in pretty dominant fashion. We will see kind of how, what players play for the Lakers and whatnot. But I want to talk about, I'll do the breakdown of the game from the Spurs side of things once we, get a little more details on stuff. I want to talk about coming off of the loss, right? Because Spurs are coming off of a loss, going in LA against a Lakers team that is hot at the moment, right? And playing very well, won 4 straight, right? Like looking like a team to not be trifled with, right? And look, it's not the Chicken Little, the sky is falling if the Spurs lose this game. It's not the end of the world that the Spurs lose this game. But one of the things that kind of makes or breaks good teams is how do you respond after a loss? Spurs start 5-0. Greatest start in franchise history. That is crazy to think about. Like, Victor Wembanyama looks like the best player in all of that. The guy's been unbelievable. But you're talking about 5-0 being the greatest start in franchise. Think of how many good teams the San Antonio Spurs have had, how many great starts the Spurs have had, and have never started 5-0. Like, they've had 4-0 starts on several occasions, but 5-0 never happened. So you have the greatest run and greatest start to a season in franchise history. And then you finally suffer that first loss, which is fine. You're going to have losses. It happens. I don't think anyone expected the Spurs to go 82-0 and run the league, right? But again, how do you respond after a loss? You see the top teams in particular, OKC, Boston when they were good, right? Like Cavs, things like that. Even the Spurs when they were doing their dynasty thing. They always respond well after a loss or a couple losses, right? You don't let the losses rattle up or stack up, right? You win 5 games, you lose a game, happens. Win the next 5, lose a game, right? On occasion you'll have that kind of like, oh man, we lost back-to-back games. We need to rattle this off, but they're fewer and far between. The San Antonio Spurs are a very young team. They are a team that has a lot of growth still. I've talked about, look how good San Antonio's been. They're only going to get better. They're only going to improve more. They're only going to be a better basketball team as we progress. Because, again, they're going to get more comfortable. They get De'Aaron Fox back, him and Victor Wembanyama working that 2-man game. Right? They definitely need to build on that. Last year, was the pick and roll in particular was not great. It was a little sloppy. But that'll come with timing and stuff, right? And you got a lot of guys. Dylan Harper just went down. He's going to miss a couple weeks, if not a couple months even, because I imagine that they'll be very cautious with that. But to me, right, it's how do they respond? How do they play coming off of a loss? How does Mitch Johnson have this team focused, bought in, and ready to go? Again, even if they lose to the Lakers, right, it's in the manner in which they lose, right? Is it just like, man, that was a tough, hard-fought game and they lost? Or is, do we look back and go like, hey, that was when the house of cards started to fall? Spurs had this great run, 5-0, suffer their first loss against the Phoenix Suns, which, is one of those teams that I felt the Spurs should have beaten. But nonetheless, they didn't. You took that first loss, and then now it's like, okay, you lose the Lakers. Now you lose to Houston. Now you lose and you just kind of go on and go so on and so forth. And the Spurs, look, I talked about going into the season. Talked about it while we were going through this run. I thought these San Antonio Spurs could start easily 5-7-0. Did several videos about it, talked about it on several occasions, right? That I believe the Spurs were going to start off. That, to me, the Dallas game was the real kind of deciding factor. If they lost to Dallas, then I thought that they could go like 6-1 or something like that. If they beat Dallas, I wouldn't be shocked if they went 7-0. Because again, you looked at the games. All of October was very winnable outside of that Dallas game. They win the Dallas game. Guess what? They win every game in October. Then you start the new month of November with a loss. I thought that they could beat Phoenix. I thought depending on who plays for the Lakers, they could beat the Lakers, right? And then I said my concern is then the Rockets, because the Rockets, they're probably the best team next to Dallas, you could argue, to be able to slow down Wemby. You're never going to stop Wemby, but Houston, even more so than Dallas, because Houston just has a bunch of just like, 6'8", long with like 7'2" wingspan, versatile, defensive, hyper athletic wings. So the Houston Rockets game was the one that I had the most concern with. Lakers, obviously, depending on if does Luka, LeBron, and everybody play. Also, how would they look? Obviously, we've seen them now in action. They've looked good. So the concern that I have for the Spurs though is like, okay, you lost to Phoenix. It happens. No biggie. Now you lose to the Lakers. Okay, 5-2, no problem. It happens. Now you lose to Houston. Okay, now you're 5-3. Okay, all right, still good winning record. Okay. And then now you're playing the Pelicans. Now you should beat the Pelicans. But the Pelicans are going to win eventually. The Pelicans are going to rattle off some games eventually. Right? They're going to have some wins eventually. And it's like, are you that team? Then you got the Bulls. Then you got the Warriors twice. Then you got the Kings, okay. Grizzlies, they're falling apart at the seams. Hawks, okay. Suns, revenge game, okay. But you're on the road again. Then Blazers, they've been solid. Nuggets, Timberwolves. I mean, you could easily fall behind 500 by the time November's over. We could be looking up and going like, man, remember when they started 5-0? Wow, what a turnaround. So again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen immediately. Like they lose to the Lakers, that's it. Season's over, pack it in. That's not what I'm saying. But again, it's the manner in which they lose. How do they play? Right? Do we start to see the empire crumble? Right? Do we start to see the cracks in the foundation where it's like, okay, this can start fall, like this house cards is about to come down. Right? Because again, it usually starts with that game. If they were a team that was experienced and had the experience, like this wouldn't even be a video, right? Like they were a team that was 3, 4, 5 years together, and we already had the kind of trials and tribulations that they've gone through to become the top team that they are. No, it wouldn't even be a thought, wouldn't even be a question. But they're not. They haven't gone through those lumps yet, right? They haven't gone through the success that they just had and then suffered a loss. And then what happens if the losses start piling up? Do they just start to crumble, or do they kind of, hey, wipe our hands of it? It's done. It's done. Let's go on to the next one. All right, we're going to find out. We're going to see. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me not. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.